If you think you've heard it all, well, think again, because here are 25 crazy facts that will blow your mind. Everyone looks forward to Casual Fridays, but they probably don't know its origins. It originated in Hawaii back in the 60s, but it wasn't called Casual Friday. They knew it as Aloha Friday. It all started as a promotion by Hawaiian shirt manufacturers trying to convince office workers to wear those florally Hawaiian shirts to work. There was once a specific word for the day after tomorrow. That word was overmorrow. While it was common in the 16th century, it's pretty much obsolete today. Similar to yestermorrow, the day before yesterday, fudgel, pretending to work but actually doing nothing, and my favourite, crapulous. It means feeling unwell from drinking too much, although if you've drunk too much these days, crapulous might just sum it up. In 1985, 17-year-old George Lamson Jr. was the sole survivor of Galaxy Airlines Flight 203. The plane crashed shortly after takeoff, killing 70 of the 71 people on board. Lamson was ejected from the plane while still strapped to his seat. He landed upright in the middle of a street and miraculously only walked away with a scratch. Fleas can jump 130 times their own height, equivalent to a human leaping over a 30-story building. But how? Well, they've got elastic power. Let me explain. Instead of just relying on muscles, fleas store energy in an extremely elastic protein called resilin. Before jumping, the flea contracts its muscles, compressing the resilin pad in their hind legs. When it's ready to jump, it suddenly releases all that stored energy, effectively catapulting itself through the air. So a flea is really just a giant spring. Just 1% of the tickets for Super Bowl 48 were actually available to fans. The other 99% went to NFL teams, corporate sponsors, broadcasters, and VIPs. And you won't be surprised to know that this happens every year. But if you are lucky enough to score yourself a ticket, expect to come out of it around $8,000 or so poorer. Cockroaches don't like cucumbers. In fact, they actively avoid them. This is because cucumbers have a compound called trans-2-nonenal, a naturally occurring insect repellent. And it's not just cockroaches, ants hate them too. It disrupts their pheromone trails, making it harder for them to navigate. But if you're now planning to go out and buy a trolley full of cucumbers, just make sure you get the fresh ones. The old ones aren't nearly as good. The famous Windows XP wallpaper with the rolling green hills, that clear blue sky, and those picture-perfect fluffy clouds wasn't just another stock photo. It was so valuable that FedEx refused to ship it. Its official name is Bliss, and while the exact price was never disclosed, reports are that Microsoft paid upwards of $1 million. This makes it one of the largest amounts for a single photo license ever. Within 24 hours of being born, a baby reindeer can outrun an Olympic sprinter. I'm talking speeds of up to 50 kilometers per hour. And they have to survive. Those wolves and bears are always on the hunt. There's been several cases worldwide where identical twins have avoided conviction because no one could agree which twin was guilty. This is particularly challenging when the case is built on forensic evidence because identical twins share nearly 100% of their DNA. But there is a way. Fingerprints. Just better hope they weren't wearing gloves because this is really the only way to tell them apart. It's almost certain that glass of water you drank earlier today once passed through a dinosaur. It's all based on the principle of molecular recycling, the idea being that the same molecules on Earth are constantly reused. Dinosaurs roamed the Earth for more than 165 million years, so yeah, there's little doubt at some point we've all drunk dinosaur pee. There was an Australian rock band called The Beards, and every single one of their 38 songs was about, you guessed it, beards. The band gained a cult following for their dedication to beard-related lyrics. Popular titles included No Beard, No Good, A Wizard Needs a Beard, and the somewhat controversial, If Your Dad Doesn't Have a Beard, You've Got Two Mums. But their fame was short-lived. They did manage to release 4 albums, but went on to announce their retirement in 2016, stating they'd run out of beard-related ideas. There's no scientific difference between frogs and toads. Toads are just species of frogs with drier, bumpier skin. This is because before the modern taxonomy, early explorers classified animals based on their appearance, and sure, toads do love land and they've got smaller, stumpier legs, but they're still technically just big frogs. Billiards tables are often called pool tables, but the name really has nothing to do with the game. Avid gamblers would pool their money to bet on horses. They'd do this in gambling halls known as pool rooms. These halls typically had billiard tables, and that's how their association with the term pool came about. An IQ of 171 is exceptionally rare, occurring in just 1 out of a million people. This is like Einstein or Hawking level of smart. To put it into perspective, an IQ of 130 already places a person in the smartest 2% of the population. Originally, Halloween jack-o'-lanterns weren't carved from pumpkins, instead turnips were the vegetable of choice. The tradition comes from Ireland, inspired by the legend of Stingy Jack, a trickster who outwitted the devil to escape losing his soul. As the story goes, Jack was eventually cursed to wander the earth with only a hollowed out turnip and a burning coal inside to light his way. People used to carve scary faces into turnips to ward off Jack's spirit, and this is how the Halloween tradition was born. If you order a Big Mac in Switzerland, prepare to spend big, because it's the most expensive Big Mac in the world. A Swiss Big Mac will set you back $8.07 compared to just $2.28 in Taiwan. This price difference is measured on the Big Mac Index, introduced by The Economist in 1986. It's used as an informal way to measure purchasing power among countries. Hollywood actively measures how popular a celebrity is through their Q score. A higher score means stronger public appeal and a greater chance to snap up one of those lucrative endorsement deals. It's been reported that Tom Hanks and Morgan Freeman have previously topped the list. And yes, the scores can go negative. Kim Kardashian took that title with a score of -71. During World War I, women were encouraged to give out white feathers to men not in military uniform to shame them into enlisting. It was called the White Feather Campaign, the white feather being a symbol of cowardice. And the campaign was so effective that the British government had to step in because essential workers kept getting harassed for not enlisting. They ended up creating a separate on-war service badge to protect them from the public shaming. When the Edmonton Oilers traded Wayne Gretzky to the LA Kings, Canadians were outraged. So much so that the Canadian government stepped in and tried to block the trade. The trade was so controversial that there were calls for the government to make Gretzky, the greatest hockey player of all time, a national treasure. This title is reserved for things like the Mona Lisa or the Crown Jewels of England, and could have forced Gretzky to stay in the country indefinitely. The 16th to 19th centuries were considered the age of sail, a time when wooden sailing ships dominated global trade and exploration. And in the age of sail, sailors were particularly fond of black cats. Black cats were considered lucky and often kept as ship cats to ward off storms and ensure a safe trip. The first attempt at cryonics failed miserably. Founded in 1966, the Cryonics facility in Chatsworth, California stored 9 preserved bodies in liquid nitrogen. Only problem was that they ran out of money. They couldn't afford the liquid nitrogen supply and the bodies were left to thaw. There's no legally defined boundary separating Bosnia and Herzegovina. Yes, it's one country, but no one can officially agree where the two regions meet. It also doesn't help that some towns and cities are considered part of both regions, depending on who you ask. The term loophole originally referred to the narrow slits in castle walls archers would fire arrows through while still staying protected. It's evolved since then, but the principle remains the same. Finding a loophole really just means exploiting small gaps in the rules, much like how archers use those narrow gaps to their advantage. Despite popular belief, Pop-Tarts weren't named because they pop out of a toaster. The name instead comes from the 1960s pop art movement, all those bright colours and bold designs. They also didn't start out with frosting on the top because Kellogg's were concerned it'd melt in toasters. Planned obsolescence is where a company intentionally reduces a product's lifespan so people go out and buy that new upgrade. In 2018, Apple was investigated after reports surfaced they'd used software updates to slow down older iPhones. And surprisingly, they admitted to it. Well, sort of. They admitted to throttling the performance of their older models, but claimed it was only to prevent battery-related shutdowns. And there's my facts, random as you can get. Did you have a favourite? It might just be my Aussie humour, but I was particularly fond of the beard-related Australian rock band. But that's all there is for today. Thanks again for your support. Every view, comment, and like makes these videos worthwhile. And don't forget to check out the rest of my channel. There's plenty of fact videos to keep you entertained for hours. But until we meet again, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.